before I just go into slide mode, there was a very strange thing. My notes are on this little iPad. And I decided that PDF would be a good way to read the notes because, I have about this and then the next frame. So I opened up the document in Adobe Acrobat. And there is a button on top and I pressed it and it says activate liquid mode. So considering that since the early 90s, liquid information has been the whole thing that I've been pushing and my whole philosophy, that was very strange. Especially considering I learned last week that Microsoft's new document format is called Fluid. So there's got to be something in the water, if you pardon my double pun. Oh, Henning did a thumbs up. I have no idea how you do that, but that's cool. So I'm going to get into the screen sharing now. And we will go through. And I need to stop my camera. Stop video, very good. So now you can only see my screen, but not me, right?
I hope yes. Yes.
All right, excellent. Because you don't need to see me having my swigs of coffee, do you?
No.
So what I want to show you today is powerful views of your work to help you think in powerful ways to deal with citations to connect with the work in your field. Those are the two main issues of everything that this is. The presentation will take roughly an hour based on last week, starting with a 5-6 minute introduction on the design philosophy behind all this. The demo will be of our PDF viewer called Reader, text utility called Liquid, and word processor called Author. All of these are for macOS. My theory is that the most fundamental part of existence is not atoms or electrons or quarks or any matter, nor information. I think that the most fundamental part of existence is interaction, since it is through interaction that information is generated. This means that in order to extract maximum value from our information, we should provide maximum interaction. And this is what we're working on to build an ecosystem that supports. By addressability, I mean the means through which you can find something and tell others where something is. A web link is a direction to a location. For example, the book is in the directory called Interesting Books on the server books.com under the name coolbook.pdf. This is like saying that the book is in the library on the third shelf in the section on anthropology. This is not useful if the book is not there. As a student, of course, you use citations which contain identifying information, including the title of the document, date of publication, the author's name, publishers, and so on. This means that if the server that holds the document goes down or goes away, you will still have ways to find the document should it be anywhere else. The use of citations is, of course, the backbone of academic discourse. It is the means through which academic thought connects. It is, of course, also how we make sure we don't accidentally plagiarize. However, current ways of dealing with it in digital environments are cumbersome at best. I'll get to that later. Those are examples of explicit links. My friend and mentor, Doug Engelbart, also had the concept of implicit links. For example, every word is implicitly linked to its entry in the dictionary. Even as something as simple as pointing with your finger is a way to address something. In the real world, if you can't point to something with your finger, mention something with words, or somehow touch it, you can't refer to it or tell anyone about it. In a computer system, you can't interact with it if you can't select or address it. A developer of the hugely popular large world multiplayer game Crysis said in an interview in Edge magazine many years ago that making AI bots was not hard if you work to make the environment aware of itself and what its characteristics are. Use the example of a virtual piece of wood. How much force is needed to break it? Can it be seen through? Can it be burned? And so on. This is an approach taken for decades in the computer games world, and it is time to take this approach for knowledge work. This is what we're trying to do with what we call visual meta. The goal of visual meta is to let documents know what they are. In other words, who created them, i.e. how to cite them, what they contain, how tables and other data is formatted, and how they are structured in terms of headings and so on. Having this self-awareness gives bots or AI or humans the ability to interact with them as though they are virtual information landscapes and not just frozen pixels. The way it is implemented is not by creating a new document format. It's simply done by appending academic BibTeX citation pieces to the back of documents, which can be created by the authoring software or manually. It's pretty much the same thing as we have in a paper document on the front page. Except the reason we put it on the back, so you don't have to see it every time you open the document. The reason for doing it this way is simple. Useful meta information is pretty much never added to PDF documents. It's technically possible, but it's technically hard to do so, and publishers have very little incentive to do it. That's why it hardly ever is done. This is a document downloaded from ACM, and still there's no useful meta information. So this is an example of actual visual meta, which I like to highlight is BibTeX in a human readable form. So at the beginning bit is just what version it is. So in the future, if something changes, you can see what the changes refer to. And then we have the actual BibTeX. Human readable, this is an article, author is me, title is History of Citation for Books, the year is 2020, institution Liquid Information. There's also plenty optional things you can put after that. One of them is in JSON format, headings. That is so we can do more interactions with the document, as I will show you later. Please note that this approach means that the document can be printed and scanned, and with OCR, the meta is still there. It is really, really important for the long future of documents for archiving and access. Already, even in my field, which is computer science, there are documents that are not accessible or the format has changed and we cannot read them properly. This is an example of visual meta from the Future of Text book. You can see it's pretty long, but the text is tiny, so it actually takes up only 2 pages in the book. As I mentioned, we will go through the PDF viewer called Reader, then the text utility Liquid, and finally the word processor Author. All of these are available from the macOS App Store or from liquid.info. When I go into the live demo now, please excuse any internet lag. If things seem a bit jerky, please do tell me and I will repeat things. Does anyone have any questions for the introduction bits? No, good. All these windows. So the first feature I'd like to highlight seems a bit pedestrian, but I think it's really useful. I use the escape key to go in and out of full screen. That means that instead of having to hunt up here for the little button, it's much more likely that I use it properly to read with. Also, please note that the background is white all the way around, so you don't have a strange framing effect depending on the aspect ratio of the document. To go through it, and most commands are the same as most PDF programs, spacebar or arrow keys to go through it, and so on. Jury and Pip, you are in this, of course. To highlight text, select it, and H. Very clear and obvious. But let's talk about views. You can fold the document if it contains visual meta, or if it has proper PDF headings, which is quite rare. To fold, yes? Is someone talking on purpose? Hang on, I think
it's just somebody just joined and you might need to mute them.
Yeah, welcome. We're just starting the actual demo bit, so I'm going to mute. Oh, there's two of you. Fantastic. Let me just see. Mute. Okay. Yeah, so we're in the PDF reader called Reader. We just highlighted 2 bits of text. And now I'm going to show you what I call folding. With Command minus, I fold the document. I can do more and less, fold in and out.
I'm having a bad day. Oh, sorry.
What's happening? Who is this? I couldn't hear who was talking. That's not very good. Valentina, do you think you could follow up?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so escape to go back in, and we do the command minus to fold, click to jump, and so on. If you hit the H key, it'll show you the headings, but it'll also show you highlighted text. Like this. If you hit the N key, it'll process the document to show you all the names and all the different sections. Valentina, are you having any luck?
I'm trying to understand who it came from, but I'm not entirely sure. So I'm just asking.
All right, because if we have a bad day, that's not a good thing for anybody. All right, right, I'll continue. If you need to find something in the document, the normal way of doing it is to do Command F and then write what you want to find. The view you get here is all the results by line plus 2 lines above and below in gray. That's because PDF works by line and not sentences. So here in this example, we can read about Ted Nelson. And now we can choose to do Command F to go back out, or I can click on one and I can further read on that page.
Has anyone seen my hat?
Your hat.
I think we might have been Zoom bombed, or there's maybe some sort of something coming in that we were not planning to have. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, is that, which one is it? There are 2, we don't know. There's Galaxy and Kyra.
Yes.
Galaxy and Kyra, could you please identify yourselves? You're of course very welcome to join us if you're interested in what we're talking about. If not, just so we can keep going and not waste everyone's time, I'm going to have to kick you out, I'm afraid.
I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Hello, Lucy.
Me as well.
Okay. Yeah, please feel free to listen, but please stay muted unless you have a specific question for what we're doing, okay?
Understood.
Okay, excellent. All right, so let's go back into this. So here we have, we've done the Command F to do a search. But what I think is really a key thing here is if, for instance, I select the word Xerox and I want to see everything in the document with Xerox, I don't have to do Command F and type Xerox. I just select Xerox and do Command F. And now it shows me all the occurrences of the word Xerox in the document. So you can say Ewan and Jury have been writing about Xerox as well as Simon. And if you look further down, this document happens to have a timeline. So we can instantly see dynamically all the entrances for Xerox in the timeline. That's absolutely one of the biggest features of Reader. And you know, I'm just mucking about now to show you how quickly and fluidly it works, almost randomly. Click. Okay, here's someone written about Beethoven. Did someone else write about Beethoven? No, only David Owen Norris, who is a musician. but then you can see in the timeline that there's also a reference there. You can just do Command F to go out of that view. So that's Reader. Any immediate questions on Reader before I move on to Liquid? Okay, just going to unhighlight this.
So I added one in the chat.
Hang on, what's happening in the chat?
Yeah, sorry, the question was, are these highlights addressable, listable, linkable?
Who asked that? Was that you, Jerry?
Yes.
I had to be you. That's a very Jerry question. No, they're not. Not as such. But that is a really important issue because the annotation side of things, which is what that is, of course, is a huge next step. For instance, there is a big difference between highlighting something positively, and let's say you're reviewing, and then highlight something negatively. So that is something we're working on, and also working on how to do the in-document addressing of that. So thank you for highlighting a really important, massive topic deal. Right, let's talk about Liquid. Liquid is my oldest application. It's been going for quite a few years. Hugely good ratings on the App Store. Everybody loves it. However, it's something that I cannot explain in words. Ironically, it has to be shown. That's partly the reason why I did the word processor author, so people would try author and find out what this is. And it does the following. It allows you to interact with pretty much any text in any application on your Mac with a uniform set of commands. For example, I select the word language and I do a keyboard shortcut and I get this, which is the Liquid interface. I can now, let's say I want to look up language in Wikipedia, click on references and then Wikipedia. The fast way to do that is this. What I did was I used the keyboard shortcut, which I have personally set up, and I'll show you in a minute how to do that. I used Command space, and then I did R for references and W for Wikipedia. Let's look up the word in etymology to show that it's the same speed. And speed really, really matters when it comes to this. Doug Engelbart liked to say it's a bit like skiing downhill. If you have to tell your skis to do this angle and do this movement in a slow or cumbersome way, you're going to fall over. When you are working with your knowledge like this, if you don't have the ability to issue commands in less than half a second without burning any sugar in your brain, chances are you're just quite simply not going to do it. To set up the keyboard shortcut, and this is more, I'm just going to show you this quickly so you can look at the video later if you like. But you go to the keyboard section of your system settings, then you go to shortcuts. You first have to turn off, excuse me, on Spotlight, unless you want to have Spotlight do a different one. Services, and then you find Liquid, and you give it a keyboard shortcut. You can also do searches, of course. Search Google. And I'd like to show you translations, and we'll do that here. We're going to skip to author, and then we're going to go back to reader for the reason, if I now do translate English, Japanese, I get the text here. I do Command C to copy, and then I can paste, and it pastes the translated text. We can also do numbers, as in maths. Select basic maths problem, and it automatically gives you a reply. You just do Command C to copy, and you get the results. Today, here in London, right now, it's 17 degrees, going to go up to a little bit more, but 17 degrees Celsius. Convert temperature Celsius to Fahrenheit. That must have slipped out. Excuse me. That simply isn't working. Very interesting. We have a little bug. It usually works. And finally, for liquid, we go back here and we're going to look at another document. This is one of my personally favorite things. For me, I understand that people like to print out PDFs because it's easier to read. Absolutely. But if you use Liquid, you can do this. So you take the selected text and you have it in an easier to read environment. You can see that it's a lighter gray tone. And also it does a single break on comma and it does a double break on period.
Hey, can you shut up? Like, for real, shut up. You're annoying. You're single.
I couldn't hear that. Could you come
Bro,
again?
shut up.
Yeah, we're being photobombed. I think make me co-host and I can kick these
Shut
people
up, bro.
out.
Shut up. Shut up. No one loves you.
That's so
Shut up.
silly.
Bro, no one loves you, bro. Shut up.
Hmm.
That's why you're still single.
Do you really not have anything better to do in a nice day like this? Okay.
Bro, you're like 80 years old. Dude, you're like 80, bro. Go back in the coffin.
Basically, we're gonna have to do
Yo, I think God needs you, bro. You ugly.
Okay, I'm just gonna remove a few people here.
I think we might have to create a new link and a password because it's spreading.
Yeah, well,
I'm supposed to be in here though.
all right. Okay, for those of you who should be here, I'll be sending a link in a minute. For the rest of you, there's got to be more fun things you can do on the internet than do scribbles and stuff. On this computer, and now I'm giving back Valentina hosting. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Okay, we're back. So the last thing you saw, I believe, was the ability to do this. Is that right? Contrary to what the kids were doing, this is supposed to make
You have to share screen.
Oh, thank you. That's probably useful. Okay, the host has disabled that. I need to be host again, please, Valentina.
I think you should stay the host. That's
Okay,
easier.
I can stay host, that's fine. So then I just stop my video. I'm gonna go, everybody just see the PDF?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So where I was finishing
Yep.
was this thing here of some PDFs are old and difficult to read, so open it in Reader and there's a shortcut to make it look like this. We have single breaks on comma, full double breaks on period. So let's go into author. Oh yeah, so you did see the translation and pasting, I hope, right? Otherwise this Japanese will look very weird. So author also allows you to go in and out of full screen with the escape key. Again, one of my favorite features. In author, you can change the size of the font with Command Shift plus and minus, but you cannot do more. You cannot change individual text. You cannot change colors and things like that. All you can do is change the view of the headings. In your preferences. That is because viewing is for you as the user. It's not part of the document. So if we read the same document, we can have completely different layouts. Author is called author because it is designed to help you author. It is not called design or layout. Those are very separate mental tasks. You can, however, apply some formatting things when you export a document, which we will get to. When you fold in author, also with Command minus, it looks quite different because authoring and reading are very different. In this case, any text that you have bolded will appear, and any names and any highlighted text will appear. You don't have to do a separate key like in Reader. The design philosophy behind this is to augment your abilities, of course, very much inspired by Doug, but it's also trying to remove mental barriers. For instance, cutting and pasting is nice, but it can happen that you cut something and then you forget to paste it, and that can be stressful. So that is a kind of a mental barrier to doing an operation. So in Author, what you can do, you can cut and cut whatever you like, and provided you don't paste it immediately, if you do Control V, you have everything you have cut. That does not go away when you save the document. I mean, sorry, when you quit. You can, of course, choose not to keep things, so you can, delete it from this list. Right, let's have a look at citing in Author. I'm going to make some space here so you can see what I'm working on. So let's say we want to cite from Tom Standage's Writing on the Wall. So I do Command T for citation. His name, it's the first book, and all the stuff comes in automatically for citing. Click Save, and there it is. If I wanted to have a sentence quote from the book rather than just have it inserted, I can select the text and do the same thing here. Oops, be good if I could type. Now I can specify how that quotation will look. So now it's got quote marks around it. Now it's an italic text without his name. So most of you will know these different types of styles, obviously. Let's delete this one here since it didn't have any text. What we can also do is go into Reader and copy any arbitrary text. Excuse me, and paste that text. And it pastes as a citation. This is what I pasted. You can see the names at the end here. If I click on this, you see it has the DOI, the publisher, all that good stuff, and the names of the people. I would like to show you how that works. Sorry, the Mac is doing weird things when you do Command Tab these days. So in Reader, when you copy text, if it has visual meta attached, as you saw earlier, the BibTeX is at the back of the document. So what happens is Reader appends the BibTeX to that copy text, sends it to Author. Author understands this is actually a citation. It's not just plain text. You don't actually have to select text in Reader. You can just open a document and do Command C, then go to Author to paste, so you can cite without specific text. You can also, in Author, go to a website, copy the BibTeX of the document, and paste that into Author, and Author will paste that as a citation too. You can also copy the document's DOI. Author will, when you paste it, resolve that to BibTeX and paste that too. In other words, this is all about the little BibTeX snippets. That is what is moved around. Author, of course, exports PDFs with visual meta should you wish, and I will show you that in a short while. However, in order to add a visual meta to a document that already exists, you can copy the DOI of the document, which is often in the document, and then just paste it. And Reader will then append and create a visual meta with the BibTeX in Reader. Any questions on that, or was that clear? Okay, I assume if I don't hear anything, that was clear-ish. So the final big thing I want to talk to you about a little bit is so far we've been working on these columns of text, but sometimes we need a different view. Sometimes it's useful to just clear the table and put your thoughts out anywhere and move them around. So at the bottom of the window, it says dynamic view. I can click on that and I can just type any text. Oops. Type names, I can type anything, and I can move it around loosely, like I have these little notes here. I can take Option and drag. So this is how I create connections between things. You'll notice maybe that some of these are blue and some are orange when I select them. Blue means that that text is also in the body of the document. So if I double click on Renaissance or Renaissance, these are all the occurrences of Renaissance in the document. Very much like how we can do it in Reader, very much how we do it in Author in the normal fold view or find view. So this is quite a unique thing where you can do mind mapping or concept mapping or whatever kind of loose thinking you want, but you're still connected to the main text in your document. If you double click on orange text, it'll ask you to insert the text. If you don't want to, just click outside if it was a mistake, but you can choose to insert it. And then you can keep typing on that document. Excuse me, typing in the document on that text. In the margin, you can also type other things and you can move them together. You can bold them once you've used them. You can just X to strike through so you can see what you've used. This was actually a feature requested by someone last week in the presentation. Please note that this, on this, what I call magic margin on the left, does not scroll with the document. It is not an annotation. It is just for you to remember what you're going to be working on, so you can type all kinds of things. And then have them there to remember what should go in the document. And finally, let's do export. So we can export in several different ways. I will just quickly show you an export to WordPress, because that literally was clicking upload, and here it is on my blog. But more relevant to us today is exporting to PDF. So we have the information about me on top, document title, which is of course not the same thing as the document name. We're going to include visual meta. We're going to include a reference section automatically. First time, we're just going to have the reference style be author date. So I call it author dates, open it in Reader, close all the other ones. So here we have a document created in Author, open in Reader. And at the end, we have automatically created reference section. You see the citations are brackets, author, reader, and there. Here's an example. And at the very end, we have the automatically created visual meta. So this allows us to fold the document and all kinds of dynamic things. I also wanted to show you that you can do number. And the numbers can be soft bracket, hard bracket, superscript. We'll do the hard bracket today. Same document instantly exported. And you see in the document here, we have 1, 2, 3. I think everyone here knows how to count. And now in the reference section, it is of course automatically numbered, and there is the visual meta at the end. But finally, this is a really weird thing. Pip, I think you're probably the only person here who knows what this is. I've changed the setting to be, excuse me, I apologize, alphabetical order on references. Just going to call that 2. and I open this. And you may notice, if you look at the first citation here, it is numbered 28. The second one is numbered 4, and so on. So it's no longer following the chronology of the document. What it does is the references are alphabetically listed, excuse me. So wherever they're used in the document, they will be in that order. When I first came across this, I thought it was very bizarre, but it is what we use in our field in computer science. And instead of a student having to go back and forth between LaTeX documents and organizing this, author does it automatically, immediately. Was that a, oh, that was an old message. I'm going to stop sharing and start video because that's the end. And any questions, please? Oh, Valentina was, oh, what happened? Valentina, how long were you out? I'm so sorry. Huh. Yeah, everyone's here now. Sorry, Valentina. How long were you out?
About 5 minutes because I had to restart my computer. I don't know what was going on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your message. Any questions?
There was a question on the everyone group or in the chat.
There was. Let's have a look at the chat again.
It popped up.
Oh, marginal links. Yes. Jury, were you
Sorry.
referring to in author or reader right
Yeah,
now?
well, I think both. In author, I really like the idea that you can just have a little sort of working area as you write, but it may also be a good idea to anchor some of them to the context, to the sort of using it as real marginal notes.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this is so. I first started with a text tool to be used everywhere. It is phenomenally useful. It's the only thing anyway, whatever. But what we have here, we have author for authorship, and then we have reader for readership. There is, of course, a layer above that, which is annotations. I haven't touched any annotations because that needs to be integrated either with hypothesis or some kind of a system. It is a big thing. Because all I'm trying to do now is serve the user who is a student of whatever grade, who needs to present a document. I think it is completely absurd how much academia wastes time on cosmetics, meaning the formatting of citations. So I believe we have solved that problem. I also believe it's completely absurd that citation managers have to exist. They should be completely optional. The fact that a document doesn't know what it is crazy. We have solved that problem. So we have the basic stuff of a student, reading stuff from the bookshelf, going through, doing basic highlights and finding the highlighted text easily, not something you can do in most citation systems. And then when they need to cite, put in a document, export it to the teacher. And that's the whole workflow. The ideal thing that we want to do next is the student exports and doesn't actually care about the citations. They just have whatever they like. And then the teacher in reader will specify, I think the citation should be superscript numbers. I think it should be this and that. And because of the visual meta, the document will be reformatted. So no one has to worry about those issues.
Yeah, that should actually make the whole nightmare of producing camera-ready copies for publication is no longer a bottleneck.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is absolutely sickening how much the human race wastes on that type of cosmetic. It's really, really bizarre. I mean, the term cosmetic, I'm using it pejoratively, of course, but to go back to computer games, that's what we call what a character or a gun looks like. We call it cosmetics. Of course, there it's very simple. It's a skin on top, but currently in academia, it's baked in, because PDF is based around that concept. Pip, I'm sure you have a comment or question on that particular issue of baked-in documents in academia.
I don't think I do. Having just worked a weekend through to do exactly that. Yes, that's what I would say.
Oh, yes, it's good. Yeah, I am really trying to make visual meta a standard accepted in different places. I think if you guys could accept visual meta, okay, I mean, we don't even need to use that name. All it means is BibTech at the end. Wouldn't that make things potentially easier?
So I have a question around interoperability. If you're
Yes.
co-authoring, presumably you both need to be using the system, which also means you both need to have Apple computers.
This is so cool. Check this out. I'm going to share screen again. So when you are actually working in Author, yes, that is a Mac thing. The only collaboration feature is if you open the same document, it will actually sync. So it is basically Google Docs, but simple. That's something we get for free from Apple, so I don't want to brag about that. However, check this out. I'm going to open InDesign because the actual Future of Text book was produced in InDesign and not in Author. So I want to show you what manually adding visual meta is. So that means that whatever software you use, it could be just, yeah, really anything, as long as you put this at the end. So here it is, InDesign, nothing automatic. This is just me typing. Excuse me, I'll try to stop that when it's a bit centered. That's it. So if you are more than one author, you would write that here. For instance, for the Future of Text book, I'm not the author, you are, of your section. So currently we have me in the editor field. We are working on how, similarly to how you see here, you are listed as headings, that you would be listed as a author for a section. That would also be in the JSON. But again, not created by our software. It's just a very open standard using Leslie Lampert's style. Did that answer your question? I'm not actually sure.
I'm not either, because I haven't used it yet, and I think it would take using it in the wild. Yes, sorry, that's not a very clear response.
Well,
I think that's absolutely fine. I'm going to do something here because I'm now just getting a document. Yeah, there was that one. So this is how I apply the visual meta to a document. So I just opened it on the ACM websites. I'm downloading it with the name what is. And then from here, I copy the DOI. I could have copied it in the document itself. Then I just paste, and you may see at the top of the document something happen. Now it has visual meta. So instead of having the information about what the document is stored elsewhere, there's nothing wrong with DOI, there's nothing wrong with having it stored on a server. But for redundancy, have it in the document itself. So that's all it is right there. So
how did you, sorry, what did you do? How did you edit the PDF?
I'm so glad you asked, Yuri. I'm going to show you again very happily. So I did undo. So this is a document completely fresh, nothing to do with me, downloaded from ACM.
Yes.
The bottom left corner here, to zoom in, there is an address for the DOI. So
yes.
I copy that, and then I just do paste, Command V. So I'm just going to do the number since we've done it before. Oh, hang on, I don't, because I'm zoomed in, I don't know what's actually happening.
Yeah, well, what is it you use to
okay.
to change the PDF? That's
Sorry,
what I'm asking.
I am in Reader.
Oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay. You are in Reader. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
So I just opened the document and then I did Command V to paste the DOI, and Reader fetched the information about the document, turned it into BibTeX, and pasted it at the end.
Okay, but yeah, I understand. But I think what people are asking is, okay, I really would like this ability to change the PDF to be self-aware, to be available generally, not just from on the Mac. So it really needs to be something like in the browser or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. So a couple of notes on that. First of all, you know, I'm only a small developer. I can only do step by step. I need partners like you guys. Furthermore, we have developed a plugin for Chrome where you download, and when you download a PDF, it will search, is there a DOI or is there BibTeX, and it will append it automatically if you have so chosen in your settings. And the usage of that, we don't have any kind of a web plugin, and we don't even have an iOS reader yet. The usage is completely open and very simple. We have on the web here a very clear and simple definition of what it is, so anybody can do it. There are no rights or anything, because literally it is the BibTeX pasted at the end. And now that we've seen Adobe have a liquid mode, which is just freaking me out, I'm hoping they can be open to doing things like adding this stuff. I mean, you would think that on the desktop you could do Command I, and you would have here from ACM. I mean, it's the Association for Computing Machinery, for crying out loud. At least the name of the author, but there's nothing. And I joined the PDF Association to learn the realities of this. And they admitted, well, you can do it, but you have to go into this extension and then you have to do this thing. It took a long time to explain. It's not obvious. But if you have a photograph you put on the desktop, it's all there, because the EXIF is a standard that's in use. Meta in PDF isn't. So yes, jury, great question, great suggestion. Please, everybody build support for this. Oh, I'm still on the screen. Maybe I shouldn't be so emphatic with my hands, because my brother will think I'm copying him. Any other questions? Well, Pip, since you're here, I'm going to grill you a little bit. Because you deal with amazing volumes of documents, including academic, and you do the research, and it's fantastic what you do. I've been there, of course, and I've seen you guys do things. What kind of metadata would you want to have on documents, and how would you want them to be handled to enable what kind of thing? Sorry for the big morning question.
Yes, it might be a second cup of tea question. What I would love is for is to have included in that the original documents that you've been using. My background before my current job was also in special collections in libraries. So yeah, it would be to standardize the presentation of the very many very bizarre ways that we refer to special collections, to objects in cultural heritage collections more generally, and of course in archives.
I have Leslie Lamport in our book, The Future of Text. And it's really weird. He made a great career doing really advanced computer stuff. But by making Donald Knuth's LaTeX, making kind of an extension, which is what BibTeX is called BibTeX, because it is. Anyway, long story. He doesn't take credit for it, really. He says it was just kind of automatic. And it just fell into the world. But at the same time, it's just an amazing thing, because it's so human readable and therefore parsable. So I'm sure you could extend it to work for all kinds of objects, not just academic ones. You know, the first step, of course, is to support the reading of it. And the key thing is it's not a new standard. That's why I keep referring to the name. It's just something that's been around for decades that's being repurposed. Anyway, if you want to at some point, it'd be fun to have a conversation with how this may apply to you. Last week, Ismail Saragildin joined us. He's, of course, the founder of the new Library of Alexandria. And he was asking lots of questions. And then I've been talking to him a little bit about how he feels this could benefit universities and libraries, this kind of on the surface kind of tagging. It's really historically interesting. And one of the first Futures of Text that I hosted here in London, I started it first with an anthropologist who did the history of how we could be developed to be humans to invent reading and writing. And then I had someone who was the expert from the British Library on Sumerian writing, cuneiform, and then followed by the expert in Egyptian writing. And it was fun. They were arguing over who invented writing first. But the reason I'm telling you now, according to the Egyptian, she said that the very first writing that we have, that is not just symbol, but actually writing, was these tiny little tags on bone about the size of a fingernail that was on products in the Upper Nile, describing what the products are and where they came from. In other words, the very first writing we have was meta tags. And just because we can hide them inside documents doesn't necessarily mean we should, because it's precious. Context is very precious, right? So why put it in a PDF that when it gets converted in the future, that is lost? Why not just put it on the same layer of the content? Because if you convert the file, if you print it, if you do whatever, it's always going to be there. Anyway, that was a probably the third time I did that bit of preaching today. So I apologize for overdoing it. And I very gratefully say thank you, all of you, for being here this morning.
No,
Oh,
it's
thanks
not
so much.
overdoing. Thanks.
That's fascinating. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Pip.
I think I need to go away and think more about it, and then have questions.
Please do. I'm right down the road, virtually and physically. And
Thank you. I love it.
Thank you very much, Frode. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And Jury, I think we're at a point where, you and me almost do the opposite, but with the same goal. I think now we can have some discussions of how we can link into each other's systems for this kind of stuff.
Yes. We should have a session at some point. Yes. It would be
Because
great. Yeah.
to address your rich graph view and also a little bit of what I think you were saying, Pip, the BibTeX at the end of the document is one thing, but the bit that is copied is really, really key. The fact that that is also BibTeX is so hugely important, because I could imagine, I know most of you haven't seen Jury's amazing, beautiful graph knowledge work, but imagine clicking on a node, copying that node, going into a normal Word document or whatever, and pasting. And it pastes it with everything. So in that, it will say something like, the node was called this. It is connected with this in this way. So that a human can spend a few minutes and understand it, but more importantly, when someone produces a PDF, and I use PDF as the worst possible format that's frozen, but it's what we have, they're reading it and they click on that, they can then open into Jury's world and everything is recreated.
Yeah, I mean the number one most important thing, and I don't know whether anybody else can do it, but if nobody else does it, you have to do it, is exactly to make all that capabilities, and I really look at capabilities of Liquid, which I've been admiring for years. It really should be in the browser, because then everybody then it becomes standard, or that becomes really usable. So in some sense, at least that capability, that very thing, that I can just add the metadata to any PDF that I just downloaded from the web.
Yes.
That would be just so fundamental.
Yes. However, on the notion of browsers versus documents, I'm a document guy. because the web is fantastic, but I think the web really should stay a web of browsing. I think the knowledge should be in self-contained containers that are addressable, which is why the academic notion of citations is so important, because it's more robust.
Okay, but the point is that just because what I meant was that the web needs all the capability that you do as sort of built in. It really needs to be liquid. So if you like, now you're doing all this, with Liquid, you have access to all these capabilities on the Mac. You can have all that capability available in the browser for anybody using a browser.
Well, the first version of Liquid was actually as a web browser plugin. It was for Firefox, and you could select text. You got a tiny little blue dots, and you had a hierarchical menu. Now, Internet Explorer, this is how long ago that this was done, did actually copy that. Probably not by having seen us, but they did the same thing many years later. It just turned out that having it in the operating system means that you have the same set of interactions available everywhere. I think that's quite important. But the discussion of what to have on the browser and what to store locally on all that is phenomenally big and useful discussion. But probably something we should have offline. Now, just as a final little thing, with the whole notion of copying, just for literally a second, I'd like to share screen just to show you something here. So under extensions, it baffles me that, I mean, sorry, I was going to go into an anecdote, but I'm not going to waste your time. Data doesn't self-describe what it is usually, but we can use this kind of logic to do that. So for instance here, and it's hard to read, so I'll just tell you what it is. It says that in the text where you come across 8:23 a.m. Tuesday, the 13th of May, 2020, that is actually NTP, Network Time Protocol, and it has the exact number for what that is. So you get it to the millisecond. So in the same way that in the JSON, it explains when you come across Pip Wilcox, that's actually a heading. Here it can say when you come across this time information, you can read it more accurately like this, and it's using this style of formatting. We can do the same for location, and we can do the same for people. Dave Millard is actually this code if you use the ORCID ID system. And all of this doesn't have to be hidden. The problem with HTML and things like that, when you just view HTML presented, everything is hidden. But if you do it this way, then nothing is hidden. It's always in the back, always available for whatever parsing can be done. So that's a cool new extension, and the opportunities for data to be allowed to say what it is, I think is just absolutely massive.
Would I have a quick question?
Okay.
The dynamic view, and you might already have answered that, and I missed it, but the dynamic view, is that just possible for one PDF document or one document, or is it possible to have dynamic view which also incorporates a lot of various different sources?
The dynamic view is in author, and it is on the back of the document you're working on. It is to help you structure and organize your thought for a specific piece of work that you will hand in to a teacher.
Okay, so there's no, so the dynamic view has not been, it's not incorporated into Reader kind of setup, or
It's not in Reader, but for that kind of thing, I think you should learn more about Yuri's work, because he allows you to do large, proper, intelligent knowledge maps, where the knowledge itself is the key rather than the document. In the world that I presented today, it really is making student and teacher happy. That's the entire focus. It's not about knowledge in itself. It's about that other perspective.
Yeah, because you have, to be able to have an overview over ideas or relationships and all of this, working in theater, which involves so many different layers of research, pre-production research, that can be a very useful tool. Thanks.
Yuri, can you say the domain or URL of where you want people to look at what you're doing? I think my brother can benefit from what you do.
Well, I think the best is to look at the Trailmarks Twitter, because that's where I will be announcing things very soon. So Trailmarks is the name, yeah,
So-
on Twitter.
So everybody, trail marks on Twitter.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And actually, if you it's very interesting, because I've been using sort of Twitter for the last 6 months really as a kind of creative sounding board of honing the articulation and honing the ideas. So it's actually there's a huge, as you see there, there's a huge movement, not just me, everybody. There's a huge movement this year when it looks like knowledge management or network thinking, like all research goes, is going to happen this year. I'm not the only one who is actually working in this. I'm aware of at least half a dozen initiatives which will and most of them have this notion of interoperability in their purview. So the people actually came to the realization that, which I always had, that, or Engelbart had, that knowledge is so complex, so meta, it's so wicked, that the idea that you will have one way of dealing it and it will be it is nonsense. What you really need to go meta, and need to enable sharing not just the knowledge, but the means of actually dealing with that knowledge as capabilities.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's more important now than ever.
Yes. So this is happening really. If you just look at the people that in my feed that I follow, these are all the people who are actually active in this area.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing what's happening because of this horrible virus. You know, not only are meetings like this suddenly become not nerdy and useful, and secondly, people are understanding that getting information about the virus in media is always confusing. There is no one truth place to download it from. So therefore, we're seeing all these different initiatives, and it's absolutely wonderful. You know, we must interact with it.
So it's really the ability to at least an order of magnitude increase the bandwidth, which we can convey not only knowledge but sort of verifiable, at least attributed knowledge in context. That is really becoming a sort of an urgent thing on everybody's agenda. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, and
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Except for you, Henning. Everyone go and enjoy the nice weather.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Great day in
Good to see you
Norway.
all.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.